Yep. 20th of September.
20th of September. Hello, welcome to Matrix Live. I'm Ben. I'm here with Halfshot. You may know him as Will. He's often working on our bridges, and he's employed to do that. It is the 20th of September 2019. And hey, I think you've introduced yourself before, but do you want to say hello?
Yeah, this is my third appearance on this show. It's very nice to be here on the comfy couch. I do bridges. I'm not the only bridge developer, but I am the image.org lead bridge developer and sole bridge developer at image.org. What I've been doing recently is the Slack stuff, the IRC stuff, and all that kind of things. Probably you've known me mostly as complaining about IRC. You probably have seen me pop up. Or if it's Bifrost stuff, you may have seen me there as well. It's this kind of stuff. So I basically deal with, I guess, deployments, development, managing support, sort of around the bridge ecosystem, as it were. Mm-hmm. And that covers me pretty well.
Yeah. So a lot of your time is spent on IRC, just because it's probably the largest connection pool that we have. Yep. But on the other hand, for the last, what do you want to say, 2 weeks, you've been focusing on
at least, probably closer to a month.
Oh, really?
So I am sort of, up to about half of my time here will be image.org IRC bridges, because they are by far the most popular thing. They're quite smooth, because they're double puppeting. So for people who don't know, this means that IRC people appear as real Matrix people on the Matrix side. Real Matrix people appear as real IRC people on the IRC side. So it's quite a pleasant bridging experience compared to some of ours. It's insanely popular, which means I spent a lot of time working on it. But recently we took a detour into the Slack bridge, which has had a varying amount of support recently. I think before I took over, it was basically on minimum support. And then when I took the project over, it's had sort of doses of updates and then long periods of silence. Kadir from the community has been doing his best work to try and support it with external products and things. And he's been doing his best to make the Slack bridge work. And then recently we wanted to use it for a project in image.org. So I took it apart basically and said, right, we need to do this again, because I'm not happy supporting the bridge until it's relatively bug-free, or to a point where we feel it's very stable, which meant a lot of work had to be done.
So what are the bullet points of the work that needs to be done? You know, in terms of where it was to where you would have been happy and you're getting happy. What does that really entail?
So when we took the bridge over last year, it was all in JavaScript. It was also all in a bit of a spaghetti mess, and it was working, but it was webhooks only at the time. So basically what this meant is that you can only do very basic Slack bridging with maybe displaying as avatars, but none of the rich bridging like typing notifications or things like that. And so all this stuff came in last year, called Events API bridging, which gave us rich.
This is new from Slack.
So Slack has a new API called the Events API, which basically goes more richer information about what's coming from Slack. And it also meant we didn't have to do webhooks. It was also automatic. You click a button in Scalar and things bridged. That's what we did last year. But that was mostly a sort of a hack job onto our existing stuff. So this year I looked at it again and thought, okay, we can do some more clearer architectural design here. So we rewrote the whole thing in TypeScript. For those of you who don't know, have not heard me talk about TypeScript, and that's shocking because I talk about it nearly every week in Twim. It's basically overlays JavaScript with a existence of types, which means you can't set a variable to a type that has not been defined as. It's basically like applying a C or a Go sort of level of typing on top of your JavaScript. It means you can mostly leave the code as it is. You just have to rewrite it in a slightly more typed format. It lets you do classes that are sort of more strongly typed, interfaces, all the sorts of usual programming things, but keeping the JavaScript engine underneath. It compiles down to JavaScript at the end of the day. What it allows us to do is it means we can modify existing code and be more sure that it will be fine when you make massive changes. So one of the massive changes we made was we started to use Postgres as our storage backend for more speed, so for better reading of data at the bridge, so we can do privacy-based operations, things like that, which we wanted Postgres for. But we couldn't just make changes to an existing bridge because, you know, if you make changes to a thing that isn't typed, anything could happen. Having a type layer, you can have some certainty that things will happen in a specific way.
So it's giving you more confidence to make larger changes.
Yeah.
Right, okay. What was the database before?
So it was NEDB. NEDB is the standard for Matrix App Service bridge-based bridges, which means it's basically a JavaScript file. At the start, the bridge starts, it reads JavaScript file out, and then in memory it keeps making changes. And every 30 seconds or so, it'll save it back to disk. You can imagine this is great if you've got a small bridge and you want a malleable JavaScript sort of schemaless changes. But as soon as you have something like the 3-node bridge, you'll have 250 megabytes of JSON you have to load into memory and start up, store in memory internally. And obviously, the effects of a JavaScript store is massively dangerous when you get to the large scale. So anything Major.org based is immediately large scale. When we deploy it, even the Bifrost bridge that we had for a month or so previously got quite big. So we need a better storage backend for what we're doing. Postgres is nice because it allows it by default. It's sort of MySQL, RDMS, relational database. I learned this in school a long time ago. So yeah, a lot of our Major.org stuff is database based in Postgres, like Synapse. It makes sense to move to something like that, unless there's a better alternative, which there isn't.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Postgres is a fine choice. Yeah,
it's a good choice, and you can run it in one command and Docker. It's perfect. Yeah. And it also lets you do JSON in Postgres. You can do JSON-based operations in Postgres, which is just a free advantage. So yeah, we use Postgres for our bridges now where we can. There's the point in making that. And Slack has now got that.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so you're on RC2 as of today.
We're RC2. So we're making RCs incrementally as people find issues, or as I find issues as I deploy it all over the place. When I stop finding issues, we hit 1.0. Is my preferred way of doing it.
Okay.
It works.
What issues did you find between RC1 and RC2?
So they're tiny things like, so one example is we leaked tokens into the logs when people did a command. And it's just things like that, which you can release with, sure. But if it's a 1.0, we want to be absolutely sure it's going to work. There's a lot of reliability things, because one of the changes we made to 1.0 is the Rtm Api, which is like the events API previously mentioned, but it's over web sockets, which lets you do real-time operations such as typing notifications. It's a small change, but it's quite important in that you don't have to host a web server to do Slack bridging anymore. It gets around that limitation. It's generally quite good, but as it's a new API, we're just shoving out there. We want to be sure it works. So that's why we haven't release candidate for that.
Right. So this is also new on Slack's end, the Rtm API.
Yeah, relatively new. Yeah, I think it was in the last 2 or 3 years. Okay. And we just don't adopt Slack tech because the bridge has had virtually. It hasn't had much work done on it recently until now. We've done literally a ton of work in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Because we sort of worked in a sprint format of just sprinting all the features you wanted, like puppeting, typing, everything at once to get to a 1.0 state. It's now a beautiful bridge. I'm very happy with it. And we probably won't touch it again for years.
No, I'm glad. I mean, I've seen you beavering away on it for the last few weeks, and
so Ben's obviously been doing all the reviews for this bridge. Very gratefully stepped up.
I know. I'm impressed with the speed of this thing. All right. So what is happening now in terms of what you're calling RC2? You say that 1.0 will be the RC where there's no more changes.
Yes. As soon as we're comfortable and happy with what we've got in there is good enough to ship as a 1.0, and people won't be saying, "Oh, there's this small bug that stopped me from bridging at all." If it's so, we obviously have to make a call at the end of the day and say, well, "This is 1.0," like Synapse did not long ago. We'd say, "Okay, there are bugs, but we're okay with it," or "There's stuff we want to change." I suspect next week will be the 1.0 point. This week was going to be the week we deployed to Major.org, but due to complications, that'll be next week. So that is probably the final test we will do, is we'll deploy at Major.org and hope nothing explodes. If nothing explodes at that scale, that's usually where I say, this is probably okay for anybody else.
Okay.
I'm not testing production, but you could probably consider maybe testing production, but it's fine. That's actually.
I think I would call that testing in production, but yeah. I mean, it's early days for the thing, and having 1.0 is gonna. It's going to give a feeling of stability, if nothing else. Now that people are able to contribute a little bit more easily, now that you've got TypeScript and unit tests, all these
TypeScript, unit testing, we've got a whole contributing guide on how to set the whole bridge up. There is even a guide that tells you step by step how to set the whole thing up in a PR form, which we'll eventually decide on a format for. But basically, we're trying to make the bridges easy to contribute to for 1.0. That's a big thing for me, because I'm aware that I will not be spending the rest of my time working on that after 1.0. So it's important we get other people to contribute to it as well for the features they might like.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Having a
that's quite
stable
good to go.
baseline is the first thing, and then being able to contribute. All right, I'm just trying to think here. All right, so yeah, all right. I mean, so Slack, it sounds like it's in hand. After the release next week, then hopefully you'll be in a calmer time with it, and you'll just be able to take control.
No, next week already I'm on to IRC based stuff again.
Right.
So one of the big things of IRC is we're just so as aforementioned, the NEDB data store is not sustainable for large bridges.
Mm-hmm.
We have weaved around this issue for years and said, well, it's okay for now, we'll replace it in the future. We once had an issue where it would refuse to start because the pure string form of that file was too large for Node to read, as in there's a maximum limitation on the size of a string in Node, and it was smaller than our database. So we've actually already hit the bottleneck before and skirted around it. Now I'm actually investing a lot of time to make the bridge support both NEDB and Postgres. That is now working.
Why continue with NEDB support at all? I mean, it doesn't sound like...
Because relatively speaking, for the small, it's actually quite a widely deployed bridge. Whereas with Slack, it wasn't as widely deployed.
Okay.
With this one, it's actually in use everywhere. NEDB is fine for smaller instances. It's not so problematic. There's reasons why IRC uses less storage for a smaller bridge than a larger bridge, so it's okay. But yeah, we're doing NEDB for the larger installations because it makes sense for us. It's much faster. It's the other advantages with Postgres is you can do more caching, clever tricks, anything you like on Postgres side without touching the bridge. Most importantly, we can make changes to the Postgres data without restarting the bridge. A big problem we have right now is I can't make changes to the data store in the IRC bridge without restarting the whole bridge. I think everyone's aware of how much they hate the IRC bridge being restarted. So basically trying to avoid doing that whenever we can.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it's only on this call that I've learned how NEDB works. So it streams it into memory and then it spits it back out as JSON.
Yeah, occasionally spits it back out. Of course, you make any changes to that file, it gets overwritten. If it crashes, you'll lose 30 seconds of data at the worst, which the author claims is not so bad.
Well, it depends what you're doing.
It does kind of depend.
Like maybe not for him.
It's not in active support at the moment, so we're trying to get away from it. But for the time being, we're supporting both.
Okay. All right. I mean, it sounds like Postgres is the future, regardless of anything else.
We're doing it for Discord Bridge as of like last year, so it just makes sense to keep moving. On that note, the other things we're doing for IRC Bridge is TypeScript support again. Because everything gets infected with TypeScript at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, so on that note then, how much overlap is there between these various projects? You know, it sounds like that you're doing a lot of the same patterns.
Yes, it's mostly, annoyingly, it's not stuff I can replicate with one library. It's all stuff I have to do again and again, because the formats of each data store is a little different. They've been written by different authors in different time periods. But the crucial fact is, once everything's on TypeScript, making changes is easy.
Okay.
And one of the things we're going to do, so contract is also a good point to bring up.
Yes.
We were doing contract last year.
What is contract?
Yes. What is contract? That's the tale. It's a very long project of basically what happens if we move all the IRC connections out of the IRC bridge.
Yes.
So for people who don't know, the IRC bridge maintains one connection per user, which at the current rate is 24,000 connections for the IRC bridge, freenode IRC bridge. If you lose the IRC bridge for any reason, crash, restart, anything like that, all connections get zoommed and then there's nothing left. You have to connect them all one by one. It takes ages. Wouldn't it be great if they were in a separate process that did very little and wouldn't crash as much? Or you could split them into many processes. This is the basis of contract. It's an IRC bouncer with more clever bridging style things in it. And we did this project last year. Got some way through and then got stalled by many other things. And this time we're bringing it back. And the idea is we're going to merge contract into the IRC bridge as a option to either be a monolith or a multi-process thing. Similar to how Dendrite works in that they're written in the same language. You can either just import the contract stuff into the bridge or run it completely separate in a way that allows people who have existing bridges to use the contract stuff, the performance benefits of contract in bridge, because we've rewritten all the IRC-based bits anyway. Or you can run it multi-process. It's fantastic in terms of that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I knew it was a way of separating.
But yeah, and we decided with conversations with Travis that the best way to do it would be to have one way of connecting to IRC and either do it in process or out of process, rather than maintaining two separate code bases for doing the same thing. So yeah,
I'm strongly in favor of that. All right. Yeah, I mean, just any amount of duplication is a problem. I'm just looking at my list. This is the list that you wrote.
I know I should probably know what's on the list. Yes.
Yeah, I like this phrase. Making sweeping changes to bridges is easier if you have types and interfaces to keep everything in check.
So the 3-node IRC bridge is one of the most complicated node projects I've ever witnessed. Probably second only to Gitter's own code base. It's very, you have to be careful when you're working with it. It's very hard to make changes to. And it would obviously benefit from types in the same way as Slack does, in that if you make changes to it, you need to know if it's going to have an effect somewhere else. And it's just having types would be helpful. So with this project, rather than rewriting the whole thing in TypeScript, it would take me weeks and months, and review time would take me years. So instead, we've implemented the very basics of TypeScript support, and we're incrementally changing files to TypeScript in preparation. It's just a good time to start contributing if you want to help out with the IRC bridge. But be aware that you should probably be writing in TypeScript if you're going to do it. But yeah, as usual, community stuff would be quite a good time to,
I mean, the incremental thing is a real advantage of TypeScript. The fact that you can. Yeah.
So you don't have to. So nice way TypeScript is it interfaces directly with JavaScript. Absolutely fine. Obviously, there's no reason to have JavaScript in your program if you don't need it. But if you're making changes, you can just import backwards and forwards absolutely fine. And so for large projects, you can just do it incrementally as you need to. And that is the plan for it. So the IRC bridge will slowly be converted to TypeScript over the coming weeks.
Awesome. All right, so that's a lot going on. What's next?
So things we're planning to do. Gitter is on my radar in the medium to long term, is then we want to enable the same sort of level of bridging that we have for the IRC bridge, where people on Gitter see actual Matrix users and people on Matrix see actual Gitter users, which they do already. But PMs and everything else, the whole thing to be bridged in very neatly and tidily. Because there are a lot of Gitter users out there who like to talk on Matrix. There's a lot of Matrix users who like to talk in Gitter rooms. It would be really nice to have this proper community thing going on. And there are various ways of talking about how to do this. It's still sort of blue skies phase, but we're getting to the point we might have something to show, soonish, without any time frame.
But this is somewhat contingent on the other side, I think.
Yes. So we've been chatting to Gitter very positively, and we're going to sort of look at how can we interface with them in such a way so they have extensible events, and we can do so that we can send them information about Matrix users and it appear in their web UI, and all these sort of changes we need to make for two-way looking.
Right. I mean, that's cool. That they're relatively receptive to this.
Yeah. They're very receptive, and I think it could be a good benefit to both sides. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, their community is pretty large. Well, it's both large and it's popular in circles where it's a small open source project. They just wanted a one room thing put together quickly.
It's a good web app, because then you click it, you can get involved in the community straight away. It's something that people use for their small projects, but then they find later on they want to talk over Matrix as well.
Right.
To get Matrix people on board. And historically, the bridge has been quite good for that, but it could always be better, right? So that's where we're going.
Okay. Anything else on your list?
A very last thing to talk about is Bifrost. Bifrost is coming back. It's been away for a long time.
What's Bifrost?
Yes. Bifrost is our multi-bridge bridge. Then it connects to multiple protocols to Matrix. Anything from the libpurple area. Libpurple is a very old C library that actually connects to lots of weird protocols like Steam or AOL, I think it's also supported, if you can find a server that runs AOL protocol. But it does lots of weird protocols. But crucially, Bifrost does XMPP.
That's a weird protocol.
A very large protocol. There's a lot of features in it, and we've been slowly bridging those in one by one. It's it's a bridge we've wanted to bring back for a long time. It's very rich. It does some very nice things. But due to lack of time for these other projects, we've sort of pushed it along.
What was the benefit of choosing to bridge to libpurple rather than to XMPP directly?
So libpurple has the benefit of you connect all the stuff at once, and then you can just choose multiple protocols. You haven't got to do a new bridge for each protocol.
Okay.
It's all written in C, so there's a horrible C node compatibility layer I wrote in a sprint a few months ago. I think there was actually a TypeScript episode on this way back last year.
Okay.
If anyone's actually really interested, I can go and find that.
We'll link it in the YouTube description. All right. Okay. So that's what Bifrost is, but it's been on pause.
It's been on pause. So the immediate future is to go through, again, do some Postgres stuff in it, so it's more stable, it's more scalable, and sort of go through, add more tests, make us more confident that the code, which I wrote a while ago, is still as good as it could be. And then once we're happy that it's going to be working and fine, and I've done local testing, we're going to deploy it onto mesh.org and bring it back. But in a more supported way than last time, where last time we did it as a beta, sort of, this is what we've made. And this time it's this is actually a viable way of talking to your community through Matrix.
Okay. And what about TypeScript there? Is it already written in TypeScript?
Already TypeScript. Oh, I was well ahead of that one. It was TypeScript on day one.
Right, okay. Got ahead of the curve on that one.
Yeah,
all right, dude, there just seems to be so much going on. So Slack 1.0 is like imminent. IRC, lots of improvements coming, but the thing to focus on really is contract.
Contract is the big one. It's going to be probably the furthest away because it's just so much to do. The short-term benefits will be TypeScript and Postgres.
Okay.
Long-term will be contract. But
okay. Yeah, so the theme of everything is that TypeScript plus Postgres is your preferred stack for everything.
That's actually, PSA notice. If you're writing a bridge, please think about your scalability in the short term straight away. If you have the option to go Postgres or any sort of a separate process database of any kind, please strongly consider doing that because your developers will thank you later on.
Right. Okay. No love for SQLite?
SQLite is actually a fine option because at least it's SQL. And actually, I don't really mind what you do as long as you make your data storage types generic. That's the one mistake we always make is we always pin ourselves on one data storage type and then eventually have to factor in another one later on. So it's always a good thing on making bridges to factor in that you may change stuff underneath anytime it's like in the future. Okay.
All right. So be generic as you can. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Any last comments? I feel like we've been talking for a little while.
I know. I think I've still got one thing to say.
Yeah, please.
Right. So the Travis's Matrix Bot SDK is becoming my new de facto way to write bridges.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
It cuts away a lot of the crap that we have for the Matrix.js SDK, in that the Matrix SDK tends to use quite a lot of memory and not really fit for bridges. Travis's Bot SDK is designed for this kind of purpose. And we've been running testing of this stuff in the Discord bridge and various other bridges. I am slowly starting to move bridges onto the Bot SDK over the Matrix App Service bridge. The Matrix App Service bridge is not going anywhere. It'll still be supported, maintained. But I would say to people who are considering doing TypeScript-based bridges or bridges of any kind of node, strongly consider Travis's one just because it is a much easier and a more scalable bridging environment.
Right. We'll put links to this as well.
Yeah. It also made Travis very happy, which is always a good thing for the community at large.
I can take or leave that, to be honest. I should also say there are a few tutorials on how to get started with the Bot SDK on the Matrix.org website, so we'll link to some of that as well. Halfshot, thank you very much.
No worries.
It's been great, and I'm blown away with the progress on Slack lately, and hopefully we'll do the same thing on IRC, Discord, Gitter, and Bifrost.
I know, so many bridges. It's amazing I can actually get them done. Apparently we'll get them done.
You took the job.
I know. Yes, they'll be good.
All right, I'm going to say goodbye.
Right.
Thanks very much. Bye now. Bye.
Bye.